Why didn't you pay for this beat though?
So they come a track.
Yo, what's happening, everybody? I'm gonna get this read in. I believe Rondo. It should be. He's on his way to meet up with Westside. I don't know how else is going, but I couldn't make it. I wanted to go. So Triple A is probably gonna have some pretty good video footage and stuff like that. I just wanted to share that. I was watching Kieran Mills. He was live, just showing the clouds and what is saying his son boxing down there in Costa Rica. I guess he won. Kieran Mills missed it. Shame on you, Kieran Mills. good video. What do you say? A homely, which we need more of that actually. We're gonna read Hidden Lands and Heaven Bearers, and we'll come back a little later, and then we'll get into Alien World Order and blah blah blah. I'm gonna read 100 Years of Lynching and the Delectable Negro. You gotta remember, this is right. Well, you can call it transatlantic, but it's deeper than that. Leopold, the troops fighting, hungry, they're real meat eaters. Is it steeped in reality? Well, of course, we think about Verrazano. There's numerous individuals, yet it was not on Earth. It was not of no one's way, except those despots. You think about fake Queen, what's her name, who bathed in her maids and children's blood for longevity, even partaking in eating the liver, the lung, and stuff like that. This is based on historical documents, but we always paint a white or a pale skinned face. It's bigger than that. There was an American explorer who was in Africa, obviously an Ashkenaz and a despot. You can Google it and look it up for yourself if you want the name and all that, who literally took an indigenous young female with him and gave them to these so-called like Polynesians of old, or Papua New Guinea type of like Twa people. Twa doesn't necessarily mean 3 foot tall like a gnome or whatever. You can be 5'4", you could be 4'8", and you can be, what I'm saying. And I believe the true stories with alcohol and tobacco and a few other things, they gave her to be consumed as far as what was written. And even him being an artist, he literally drew the pictures, which you have to, if you want to see them, you have to make sure that you remove the safety, what you call it, on your Google to be able to see it. We're talking about real tough times after the reset. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting read. I was just looking through 100 Years Lynching, and then I opened up to look at I was looking through here. Excuse me, there's so much. And then I'm always going through this, just the introduction and the pro. Everything is pretty long. Will I read that? I may read it at the end, just to, once we get through the book. And this is so-called real events about an individual who passed away, I guess, from cancer or some kind of disease. That's in the very beginning. But it gives you not a titillating, but a very, it can be very disturbing look into that which is hidden. And yet, anyone who has sense knows that this is still going on. When you think about World War I, some of those fighting in Africa, it seems like they always want to go to Africa to fight, as far as the Rommel and those before them. When they were still the true indigenous people of those lands were melanated, because the reset was exactly that, to eradicate many of our ancestors as well. But the cannibalism is real. We know in World War II, we know in numerous wars, Vietnam, but a lot of places where friends died who were in POW camps, where the Viet Cong took the bodies, chopped it up, and boiled it, and says, "Oh, y'all, oh, Americans eat good today." And literally, it'd be somebody eating and realize, "Oh, this is it was a medical. This is a human bone. Oh, snap! You know." This is like human flesh in here, where they didn't clean it too well, or a fingernail. And this was the case in Vietnam, and the Korean War, numerous other wars. North Korea, cannibalism is a real thing, where they sacrifice a young one, or because of the flesh being tender. This is not our world. This is not our earth. All right. So when I do read that, I want you to be very coy. I want to make sure there's no children in the room. It's not saying it's going to start off with a pow, but it's going to, how a storyline is. It always has the factors that grasp you, and there's something that holds you there, and then a continuation to hopefully prolong and keep you involved in the reading. So when we circumvent that, I want you to really be attentive, just to have an understanding. Don't get emotional and all feeling about it, because obviously it's been happening for a little while. It definitely happened here. You think about those people who are burnt at the stake, and they show you the pictures, and they don't show you chopping the body up, taking cooked flesh and bones. It's, if you know what I mean. We're nobody's food. And they're not who they might be falsely or fake believing they are. Okay? Trust me. Okay? Why would you eat flesh anyway? For some kind of strength, right? To devour your enemy. Some people do that drug or sociopathic, whether it be the cartels or whatever, right? Just a handful, not everybody. Do that to make a point. Yeah. That you need to be put down quickly. In some individuals' cases, slowly, over months. Maybe keep your breathing for a year. I'm not advocating violence, I'm just saying. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into hidden lands beyond Antarctica. I can't wait to see the footage we get back. So it's roughly about the same here as down there. So it's almost 1300. So they'll probably be meeting at the place or getting there by about 2:30, 3 o'clock. I hope. I was looking at it, but I just wanted to have them get here and read, because I set this up like 45 minutes ago, but I wanted to watch Karameo's live. It was only 20-something minutes. And there was something else I wanted to watch too. It's a small document, but another thing. You want to know how they push fear, or they keep the mind running away from itself? Well, in 73 or 93? Well, whatever. In Russia, when they drilled a hole about, I think, 9 miles deep. It's not the deepest hole. The deepest dig, I believe, goes down. They say they can't go no further than 14 or 17 miles. So this one was 9 miles down. Excuse me. And they lowered a microphone. And supposedly there's supposed to be voices hollering and screaming. Now, there's nothing to debunk it, but there's nothing to quantify and say that it's not real. Certain people that were at the site, they have passed away, and they have been staunch to the end. I believe they've gone farther than 14 miles. And then you think about Italy. Look at Italy with that home that's built into the side of the mountain. They said, during the First World War, the French soldiers the Italian soldiers in Italy went there to stay. That's showing you exactly, because if you look at the rock formation, if you Google the house in the hill, Italy, built in, that's an ancient house that for some reason is buried. And you can see how destructive. If you believe people was able to climb up this steep hill and build that, yeah. And that's how they keep the lives going. There's a number of other things, the so-called forest in Russia that's leveled out every direction as if they blew something in the middle. But the way it's laid out, if you look at the picture, You can quantify other things, but some people have a hard time when I tell them that there were sandstone spherical balls perfectly shaped all over Earth that were weapons that you could take natural energy and with focus and with knowledge or know-how, to which most people have no 99.99.999%, 0.9 have no idea. And those are the things that peppered the satellite, the moon, and destroyed a lot. Y'all really have no idea. But anyway, there's a lot of stories out there, and you can look at these pictures, and because you're not foots on the ground, you can come up with your own opinion based on what you see with the knowledge you've ascertained. Or you can start looking outside, outside the window and seeing the grass is green and the trees are tall, but they're not what they were, and you can see things for what they are. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into Hidden Lands Beyond Antarctica, the continuation of Morris's journey between interconnected planets. Claudio Naselli, nos confundum, no confusion. All right, and I always like to show who the man is. That's Claudio Naselli. Okay, my health vet. That's retarded. Let me take it off of this. I just wanted to get something a little mysterious and dark. You know what I'm saying? Like, something other than what people are used to. It's just what I do. A whole bunch of Chinese came in today. So anyway, today we're on chapter 16. Helen Morris, the story of the navigator's daughter. All right, a strange vessel approaches the shores of the ancestral lands. Many of our books about the other worlds were interspersed with stories of our past heroes, both those who survived the Great War and those who fought and overcame the fear and uncertainty of what might really exist beyond. The Anakin giants would have helped, and anybody who's been watching Star Wars and you've really been watching them, you remember the Anakin Walker, you know what I mean? The metachlorines, when you talk about Ether 9, what does it actually allude to? Atom, beginning, Earth, all that which you can't see, but you have no need to because you're part of it. Okay. You can control it. The Anakin giants would help to understand more about our plane, thus adding to our library a myriad of countless wisdom that was translated into the most sacred books and archived for further intrinsic study of what really surrounded us. In time, millions of reports, archives, and texts were added that arrived from various parts of the known lands, and during and after the Great War, that the giant humans knew how to obtain from many custodian bases, until the time came to interrelate each point in each story that we received. Okay? Interrelate, like relate, but internal, internally have knowledge of without being dismissive because knew the importance, you know what I'm saying? So in this way, we could reach many conclusions and knowledge that we did not have until then in the ancestral lands. We were able to identify many races and circle environments that would, what's this guy, who it? Have been impossible for us to elucidate by the mere fortuitous fact of how far our expedition technology reached. Clearly, we realized that our technology was not enough to make a great journey for the moment. Besides, first we had to investigate how much real distance existed and how many other races could receive us in one way or another. The images of our heroes still shine among the great books. Captain Raoul, for example, who exposed himself to danger to obtain information from the lands of Mars, crossing a passage little known at the time and giving his life so that his companions could get out of there and tell of his exploits. Many others sacrificed themselves so that our story, our history, and knowledge would continue to advance, and thus also, in addition to understanding these worlds around us, also reach the point of technology where we could go further, advancing and be able to help the humans of our lands of origin. Now, the point of being able to cut the resets forever was undoubtedly one of the biggest reasons to be able to acquire more and more knowledge of our surroundings. I know some of you would say, well, those who defeated him, why don't they assist? Well, if it's real, would you assist a powerful people who came into knowing and always did and then fell off because they did things they shouldn't have? So the story is kind of a love affair, right? Fantasy, maybe that's what they want you to see. If I saw a bunch of people killing each other, but I knew it was horrendous as far as the aperture or the individuals who were creating this, would I sit by out there? Well, then you got to question those who are here. You would never know those who are fighting on the inside now for you, because I guess they can shut that down pretty quickly. And then those who are moving parallel to not expose themselves right yet. But as stated in some of the readings, you know that there are those who just don't want to interfere. Is that selfish? Well, when you come from the source, as portrayed in many of the stories that we've covered, somebody's got to tell you to look within and stop looking outside. And until you start looking within and stop looking outside, I wouldn't come and bother you. Well, you have a choice. You pray to something outside of you with no knowledge of its truth and existence, but give hope based on compulsory narratives. First it's do right, 10 commandments, blah blah. Then you have Ma'at, that's older, supposedly. Inquiring minds always want to know, right? Then you have the story of Gilgamesh and how he lived. That there was always a choice, right? Jonah, stubborn, had to be forced by that which controls. Like, what is free will? Is it the free will to corrupt? Is it the free will just doing about face? Choices seem not to be most humans, or man and woman, or woman and man's conviction. Only when the pain is too great. And by then, it's usually too late. They were very complex missions, and for this reason, it was not very common to send men for the expedition of crossing the second ice walls. Our knowledge was acquired in dribs, small amounts, dribbles, as you would say, and drabs here and there. It was very slow, and we needed to somehow understand much more about our environment inside the Great Dome. But without expectancy, instead of looking out, they needed to look at where they were at, what's going on here. Without expecting it, one day our luck would change forever. This story has no waste and can also deliver several answers, as it also converges somehow with all the information that we are delivering gradually. One morning I awoke very early to strange murmurs coming from outside my home, near what we might call the main port of embarkation. My father William and Butler were also outside among the crowd, shouting in excitement at something approaching us. It was a clear morning, so there was a great visibility, and about 500 meters from the coast, a cottage ship was approaching. Some advanced technology in some worlds allows to hide the real shape of the object and change it to a generic one that resembles the culture where it is approaching. So coded, okay? But until then, we did not know it. We saw it in black color without any distinction coming towards us at a great speed. It did not even have time to worry that it might attack us, because William and Captain Butler were together with naval personnel very calmly waiting for this mysterious arrival. This ship suddenly changed and adopted a very curious shape, and even moved towards the inner part of the coast. Our naval forces were attentive, but the silhouette showed a being waving towards our position without seeming to have any intention to attack. It was several seconds, but I think that inside me it lasted much longer than that. Oh, the expectation, right? The tension when an unknown ship approached was always extreme as we had gone through several bad experiences in the near past. Now, it was difficult to distinguish what kind of being was visiting us. It should be clarified that we had received several beings from different parts of our plane. But this being did not match anything we had seen before. He came out with a smile, waving from afar. The first thing he mentioned in a strange accent, native to our ancestral lands, was that his visit was going to be very brief and that he was passing through to other lands. As soon as he spoke with my father and butler, who accompanied him to the main building of the naval force to ask him some questions about his real purpose here, following the protocol, it was not a time to trust anyone, much less a being that we did not really know where he came from. We feared he would be sent by the parasitic custodian or Anunnaki races to really get some kind of information about our technology, numbers of citizens, military, or other kind of information. The being passed among the hundreds of people that we crowded there, trying to get as close as possible to see both this strange vessel that practically ran aground on our shores, and also this mysterious character of a bluish tone that was visiting us. What does that sound like, Avatar? His clothes were totally white, like ancient tunics that fell on his slender body. He was barefoot. His skull was disproportionately large, and his huge eyes had a yellowish hue. He always kept a very strange smile since he descended from his big ship. He even looked from one side to the other as if he was grateful for the hospitality. I cannot lie that he emanated vibes of great peace and confidence. I wanted to go further. I wanted to go after my father, but William, trying to protect me, was reluctant to let me approach his new visitor. Therefore, he strongly requested me to return home until I could talk to this visitor and be able to understand what he was doing there. Butler followed at his side at all times and never lost track of him. He was followed by several important members of the forces. As I said earlier, it was a day that would quite change the way I understood the plane we lived on. I can never fight against my meddling ways, and for that reason, and since my father had not let me get close to this person or individual, I slipped inside that big ship as I was not sure I would ever have a similar opportunity. This peculiar ship did not resemble anything we ancestors had, nor anything I had been told about other worlds. We all claimed that it had changed shape between coming ashore until it finally ended up in the very sand. Oh, wow. That was like 4 pages. A strange vessel approaches the shores of the ancestral land. So, hold on. Chapter 17, The Beings of Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia. As soon as I set foot on this strange boat, not to say the strangest that any human has ever seen, I realized for an instant that inside it was totally different. It seemed as if inside this ship was much bigger even than what it showed on the outside. But that thought fleetingly passed through my mind and evaporated from one moment to another when I found 3 beings in front of me, similar to the first one that had gone down with my father. They were staring at me, and terror invaded my body, and I was completely paralyzed. And they noticed it, and quickly one of them advanced 2 steps towards my position and stretched his arm, trying to somehow reassure me, or so I suppose. Although by then I was terrified, I felt inside me that they did not want to do me any harm. I think I trusted. Wouldn't that be some kind of kinesis to ensure a zone of comfort? I think I trusted more than I really should have. I always had these episodes that I called ancestral new humanity dichotomy. The part of my mother and my father, you know what that means, right? A father, 2 generations that had merged and were now in me in some way. So humanity dichotomy, right? Like a dictation by DNA, the strands, the memory. And if the earth wasn't so poisoned right now by these bastards, you could have total recall as well of your ancestors. While this could have gone really wrong, and I might not be telling this whole story now, the truth is that the beings tried to calm me down and began among themselves to emit strange sounds while from their bodies emanated a bluish white light. I did not fully understand what they were performing, but it was a kind of communication between them, staring into each other's eyes. This would be another strange occurrence, but I was going to start getting used to all these experiences about the civilizations that inhabited under this great dome. One of them had a gray colored cube, but then it would turn a pure reddish color. I don't know. And from this same object, a kind of pale light would come out towards the wall and project an image. This projection on the wall showed without stopping one image after another of their circle environment, their citizens, the way they lived, even the same dome that enclosed their lands of origin. And to my surprise, an image of what I interpreted would be of the confines of this great dome. So that means not to just see the domes they were in and everybody else, but to see the immensity of the world and the true earth. I guarantee not the ends. But you get what I'm saying. And this is Cassiopeia, Harank rising Manal and Yux. So obviously they were visited and they may have defeated. So we'll get into that in chapter 18, the being called Harank. Harank. Okay? Let's get into heaven bearers. I appreciate y'all taking the time to stop in. Hey, Snoop, what's up, baby? West Side. Hey, the Ronald's on his way, right? Well, then, what's going on, beloved? What's happening, everybody? All my beloved brothers and sisters. Oh, what's going on? Oh, hey, oh, you down there? You didn't make it. You didn't go over to hit the what you call it, bro? The gun show. Anyway, I appreciate y'all being here. So yeah, I wish I would have went, but nah, things I still got to do, and I had to catch up on some of this sleep, y'all. I've been needing it. Heaven Birth, excuse me, The Great Reset of 1834 and the Mud Flood by Janine Helen, young lady from South Africa. Okay. Yeah, this is a good jam. I like this book. Let's pick up where we left off. She eats her pie and feels much better. Remember, he asked her if she wanted anything, her new to be soon husband. Apple pie. I would say strudel, apple strudel, because that's what I used to growing up with until it became apple pie. I never heard of apple pie until it was around, like, I think my second family reunion. And I was like, Mama, that's apple strudel. She said, shut your mouth and eat that apple pie. And because she used to make cherry and blueberry pies, you know what I'm saying? Raspberry pies. I grew up with that. But, apple pie, I just knew apple strudels because she used to put the little whipped cream. And, they used to make the whipped cream, and we didn't have the little canned Cool Whip. And she used to put the little sugar and marmalade on top, like in the Cool Whip. Yeah, anyway, that's a long time ago. We're talking about like 69, 72. Anyway, he is young and handsome. Excuse me. She eats her pie and feels much better. Malcolm seems nice and kind. He is young and handsome, has blonde hair and blue eyes. His smile is comforting. His hands are soft and gentle, and he has a sparkle in his eye that is infectious. He suddenly gets up and shakes the hand of another man, and his demeanor changes to a submissive one. I'm sorry I am late. Is this the girl? The man says, and his tone is curt, like courteous. He nods and looks at her. Bonnie, please meet Malcolm Harrington. Bonnie is confused, but she gets up from her chair and gives him her hand. He doesn't shake it. He merely holds it gently in his own and frowns. I expected. You are not what I expected, he says rudely, and quickly looks at his pocket watch, and then back at her. You will just have to do. Come on, we are late. He snaps at her and it makes her flinch. He marches her off and she grabs her gloves from the table and follows him as quickly and ladylike as she can. She never even got to ask the other man who he was and wonders if she will see him again. Malcolm helps her into the carriage and they sit in an awkward and bitter silence for about 20 minutes. He doesn't glance. Ego can fuck a motherfucker up. But that's how we do when we get on the bus or something around. If you're by yourself, you get around brothers in, it's like negative energy draws negative energy. Okay? Anyway, he doesn't glance at her, even acknowledge her presence, but rather feels uncomfortable around her. The carriage stops and he climbs out and mumbles something at her and walks inside the building. She stands in front of the carriage and has a good look at her surroundings. Nothing is familiar, but it is beautiful here, and it is cold. There is snow everywhere. She hears children laughing down the street and a few stray leaves blow over her feet. I love that feeling. She watches them carry on down the street and notices the atmosphere is eerie. A man gestures for her to go inside, and she dully does as he asks. Welcome, Miss Harrington. A lady not older than 40 appears out of nowhere and is helping her take off her coat and scarf. And she hangs them up by the door and smiles. While looking her up and down, she has a soft face, blonde hair, light blue eyes, and a small scar on her left cheek. That is a slight pink color. Is this my new home? She asks, and her voice is meek and unsure. Questionable, right? Yes, it is. My name is Jane, and I run your household. If there's anything you need, you come and ask me. Her smile is warm and genuine, and Bonnie feels calm around her. They both suddenly flinch to the sound of glass breaking. Bonnie locks eyes with Jane and can hear Malcolm shouting at someone, and she tenses up like a ball of yarn. Coffee or tea, ma'am? She asks and takes Bonnie by the shoulders and leads her towards the drawing room. Who remembers having a drawing room? We had one right when you come through the foyer. Yes, we have a very big house when I was growing up. Into the living room and swinging doors, mind you. It's pretty interesting. As I stated, our fireplace at one time didn't have a chimney. I'm serious. I think I have pictures of the house. You will get used to it, dear. Now look happy and smile. She says and hands her a cup of warm chamomile tea, one of my favorites. Malcolm enters the room and sits down opposite her. Jane hands him a cup of coffee, and he takes a healthy sip of coffee and swallows it loudly. He watches her and opens his mouth as if to say something, only to close it again and say nothing instead. Right? He's thrilled about her. You are too young for me and not what I want. He clenches his jaw and balls his hand into a fist. I will speak to Miss Estes. Sounds like the trucks and models and trains, right? Owned by the Ashkenaz. In the morning and have her send me someone else, he says, and takes another sip of his coffee. His eyes are fierce and mean, and Bonnie can't bear to look at them. She shakes her to acknowledge her head, to acknowledge that she understands what he just said, and her eyes tear up in shame. While he gets up, finishes his last sip of coffee, and walks out of the room. She waits until she can no longer hear his footsteps, and she starts to cry, all alone in a strange place. In chapter 2, she can't sleep that night and lies in her bed staring at the ceiling. She left the dark blue curtains wide open, and the moonlight is shining inside softly, making the room just bright enough for her to stare at the artwork on the ceiling. Why should someone paint such a magical piece on the ceiling for no one to appreciate? She wonders. It seems weird to her, and she lets her mind wander to Malcolm. She replays the look of complete and utter disappointment that he had on his face when he met her, and she wonders where she will be going to next. She remembers Dora. You remember what Dora told her. The girl on the train telling her she is pretty and that her husband will like her. Why doesn't he like me? He already said she's too young. What did I do wrong? She cries out, and she can feel the tears run down her cheeks. Who will want her now? She has heard the stories. Women who don't get placed with a husband need to work. Some end up at the factories or in the colonies. Perhaps she can run someone's household like Jane. But I don't know anything about running a household, she reminds herself. And she was groomed to be wed, remember? She turns over and a single tear runs down her cheek and onto her pillow. And she has cried enough tears for the night and decides to try and fall asleep in the big warm bed. She misses her mother. She doesn't know what happened to her, but she remembers the face of a lady with crystal blue eyes and gentle hands. She was blonde, with long wavy hair and a bright and loving smile. And when she spoke, her words sounded like that of an angel, but she didn't recognize what she said. It wasn't English as she knows it. One day, I will know what happened, she whispers out loud, hoping that wherever her mother is, she will hear her, and finally dozes off she does, with a clear and exhausted mind. Now she wakes up to Jane placing a tray of coffee next to her bed. Damn, they drink a lot of coffee. And she opens her eyes slowly and feels groggy and exhausted. And good morning, Mrs. Harrington. Did you sleep well? She asks with a cheerful voice. She turns to open the curtains and pauses for a minute when she realizes that they are already open. She watches the snow fall and places her hand onto the glass pane on the window, as if she is remembering something from her past. It is still snowing, but it should clear up soon, she mutters. But it sounds to Bonnie as if she is talking to herself and not to her. Bonnie sits up in her bed and she feels sore and tired. Most of all, she feels sad and hopeless. Pretty messed up, right? What is going to happen to me now? She asks, and she pulls the blanket up to her chin. Jane pours some tea in a small light pink teacup and hands it to her. Nothing at all. You will be joined in union by this evening, and you will become his wife. His wife? She takes a sip of tea and keeps her eyes on the teacup. Y'all know that look in the movies. Confusion, confliction, a disdain, a disturbance. Miss Harrington, he has changed his mind and he will marry you. Today, in fact. Her voice is chipper and full of life. That ain't an act. She places her hand on Bonnie's cheek and brushes it softly with her finger. He is a harsh man, but you will understand him eventually. Now finish your tea. We need to get ready. Jane runs a bath for her and puts something scented into the water. She can smell it all the way by the bed and wonders what that is. It is sweet and earthy, with a hint of warmth and something that is familiar to her, but she doesn't know what it is. Well, at least that water didn't have fluoride in it and all this other crap. What does that smell? She asks with curiosity filling her eyes. Jane smiles and hands her a little bottle with a golden cap. There is a small metal chain dangling from the bottle, and the letter A is engraved on the front of it. It's a gift from Mr. Harrington. He uses it sparingly and only on special occasions. She admonishes her, and Bonnie nods in agreement. She takes the bottle from Bonnie and places it back inside the little white cupboard by the sink in the bathroom. There is a single white face cloth next to it with a red A stitched onto it, and she knows these things belong to someone else at some point. Now, come on, get in. We need to give you a nice wash. Bonnie has never had her long blonde hair washed with anything other than soap, but this bathroom is full of products, and she watches Jane and what she uses for her hair and skin, and it makes her feel special for the very first time in her life. I feel quite pampered, she chuckles, and Jane shares her smile. You are the future, Miss Harrington. It is a big deal. You are basically royalty now. She pauses. Not quite royalty like the queen, but you understand. He is filthy rich, and there is nothing you can't have. Except you forget that he doesn't want me. Not really. I wouldn't be surprised if Miss Estes is on her way here to fetch me. She replies and traces her fingers through the foam. She can see her pale body underneath the water, and she thinks about him placing his hand on her this evening, and she can feel her skin crawl. Earth at that idea, right? You have beautiful hair. Jane ignores her previous statement and gently combs her hair. She is deep in thought herself. She finishes up with her hair, hands her a silk gown, and instructs her to wait in the dining room for breakfast. Bonnie chooses to eat a bowl of fruit and can't believe all the different colors that are staring back at her in her white bowl with golden edges. I have only ever eaten apples, and she says as she takes a bite of the little blackish blue round balls that are balancing on her spoon. She asks Jane what they are, and she explains them one by one. Blueberries are these small blackish blue balls. Yeah, if you don't get no sex, you might get like that. Anyway, these red things are strawberries, and is a this a peach, and over there are bananas. She points to an oddly shaped yellow fruit, and Bonnie can't help but smile after setting eyes on it for the very first time. Bonnie notices someone standing in the corner of the room and realizes it is Malcolm. She swallows hard and immediately stands up with a stern look on her face and forces a smile to appear on her face. This reminds me of Maiden's Tale so much. But her lips struggle to part at the sight of him. His face is mean, his demeanor is unkind, and she can feel the tension that radiates from his body. His eyes are cold and unhappy. She guesses he must be in his 30s. He has an aged face and green eyes that are intimidating to look at. If you don't know what fruit is, what on earth do the fondlings eat? He scoffs while he pours himself a cup of coffee. Man, he's a caffeine fool. His voice is surprisingly calm, and he gives her a sarcastic grin while he puts a single blueberry into his mouth. Porridge, she replies and feels silly. Well, there is no such thing as porridge here. We are not peasants. His voice is suddenly cruel and unkind. He gives Jane a look, and she quickly pours him another cup of coffee. Damn! Have her ready by 6 p.m. That is when the proceedings will start, Jane. Yes, Mrs. Harrington, she smiles and leaves the room. Bonnie finishes her breakfast and enjoys the explosion of flavors in her mouth. She thinks about Mary and Stacy and wonders where they are. Are they happy, and are their husbands kind and friendly, she wonders. She puts on a long and elegant white silk dress with long lace sleeves and gold decorative buttons down the back. This is beautiful. She runs her hands down the fabric and looks at herself in the mirror. Now listen to me, Bonnie. When the celebration of your union is done, you will need to go back to his bedroom with him. Do you understand? Remember I was talking about the maturings? Okay. Bonnie looks confused. She has no idea what she is talking about. But you about to get bucketed naked. Anyway, he will take off your dress and tell you to lie on the bed. He will then climb on top of you, make love to you. Jane starts to feel embarrassed by the topic, and her cheeks turn a soft pink. Bonnie's eyes go a deep blue, and she looks down at her feet, embarrassed. You understand now? She asks and plays with a curl that is out of place and pins it back where it belongs. Bonnie blushes at the thought and turns her head away in embarrassment. Her body suddenly feels weird, and the thought excited her, but she doesn't understand why. This is how I will give him a baby? She replies coyly. Jane, yes, she states, Jane. Jane doesn't make eye contact with her and tenses up while she looks for the diamond tiara that she needs to place in her hair. There is something she isn't saying, and Bonnie can't help but wonder what it is. You look stunning, dear. Look at you in that dress. He will be very pleased. Bonnie smiles and touches her arm. Jane, what aren't you telling me? Her confidence surprises Jane, and she wonders if she should say anything. She decides it is best if she doesn't and leaves the room for a few moments while she gathers her thoughts. Telling Bonnie that this is his third marriage is only going to make her more nervous. She convinces herself, that is. She walks back inside, that's Jane, in the room with a more composed smile and demeanor. I have nothing to tell you. Besides, this is your big day. You need to focus on that. She smooths over her hair one last time to make sure no strand is out of place. We need to leave in 10 minutes. You will come fetch I will come fetch you, if you would like a moment to yourself. She asks and gives her a motherly look. Bonnie nods that she would like to be alone and turns her back towards the mirror and stares at her reflection. She walks to the side of the room and sits at the big window and just watches the snowflakes fall, one by one, and thinks about Stacy. She decides she will ask him about it someday. If he is as important as Jane says, he will know where she is. Perhaps she could write her. The thought excites her, and she feels giddy inside for a moment. Bonnie, it is time. Jane is standing at the door and stretches out her hand and gently guides her down the stairs into the carriage. Good luck. I will see you later. She fixes her hair one last time, and Jane is fixing Bonnie's, okay? And her hands are suddenly nervous, and she runs back into the house. She doesn't wave her off. She doesn't want to wave her off. Bonnie suddenly feels very nervous as well and clutches her silk dress tightly. She looks straight ahead and thinks about Stacy and how brave and bold she was. Her mind wanders to the day she stole a piece of cake from Miss Estes and gave it to her for her 15th birthday. It was the best surprise she ever got, and to this day, no one knows who took the piece of cake. It has become the local mystery at the fondling home, and she giggles softly under her breath and covers her mouth with her hand like a naughty funneling girl. Did any of y'all look up the word funneling homes? Just asking. Here in America, 18 and 1900s. The carriage stops abruptly and her heart starts pounding hard in her chest. She sits forward to see where they are, and she can see a big, cold, and oddly shaped building in front of her. She wonders where she is and climbs out with the help of the carriage driver. She walks up to the door and notices the abnormal size of it. Would that be the giant humans as well as the humans, right? It is as tall as 3 of her, perhaps even 4. Why do they need such big doors, she wonders. She stretches out her hand to knock on the door, and it opens before her and even touches the cold, smooth steel. Miss Harrington, welcome. Please do come in. A man dressed in a black pair of pants and jacket with a small white patch on his neck stands in front of her with brown eyes and big grin. Little white patch. Okay. Miss Harrington is waiting. Mr. Harrington, is waiting for you. But first, let me ask you, how long are you a believer? Bonnie doesn't answer him, and he notices the confused look on her face. That is all right. We can discuss this later. He takes later, which is latter. He takes, and that's actually the proper pronunciation, latter, not later. He takes her by the arm. Ready? He asks her enthusiastically. Bonnie nods, and she starts to walk down the long aisle with him. Bam, bam, bam. It's like she only needs to walk about 50 meters and keeps her eyes straight ahead of her, making an effort not to let them wander too much and distract her from the reason why she is here. There are no people waiting at the end of the aisle, and she doesn't see Malcolm. Her heart starts to race, and she wonders where he could be. Perhaps he changed his mind and wants someone else after all. A man appears from nowhere and walks into the middle of the room and stops by a podium of some kind and smiles, albeit sternly. It is Malcolm, and relief enters her entire body. They reach him, and the man in black says something to him and shakes his hand and quickly gets into position. He grabs a thick book, opens it, and gestures for Malcolm to take Bonnie by the hand. Let us pray. Long is one body. Let me stop. I had to throw that in there. Bonnie listens to him giving thanks and praise, but doesn't know who this God or Lord fellow is. Malcolm slips a ring onto her finger. It is thine and dainty. Thin and dainty. I was going to say thine like relationship. Anyway, golden coloring gives her a very faint smile. The man in black asks her to say a few words, which she does. And next thing, Malcolm is kissing her. She freezes and can feel the cold in his touch, and it makes her want to pull away from him. The kiss is short and meaningless, and in that moment, she realizes that this is not what she wants at all. And it makes her feel sick. She puts on a brave smile for the rest of the evening, and he takes her down the street to a place that is full of people. She doesn't know any of them, but there's a wonderful celebration planned after their union in that odd building. She thinks back to walking down the aisle and remembers there was a deep red carpet and that almost caught her shoe and made her trip. The same kind of red that was in that fancy building at the train station. She is curious if all these buildings have red carpets. Malcolm's mansion has red carpets too. Is there a reason for this? And she knows the red carpets aren't important, but she can't help but think about them. She also noticed this big metal thing right on top and in the corner of her way out. It was shiny and had all these different linked pipes coming out of it. Organ. What did it do? Her mind is racing and she has many questions about her new reality. She wonders if she can ask Malcolm about these things. Will he want to answer her questions? So, Bonnie, how long? A voice causes her to snap back to reality and she quickly puts on a smile. How long? I'm sorry, I don't understand. What do you mean? She replies politely and shrugs her shoulder. The young man laughs out at her. How long are you a believer? This is the second time that evening she was asked this question, and she has no idea what this means. She decides to answer him anyway. Since tonight, actually, meaning I guess you could say yes. She smiles and takes a sip of a drink they call wine. It is tasty and makes her cheeks feel warm. She takes another quick sip and looks at her new husband. Malcolm doesn't pay her any attention, yet he looks happy to have these people around him. They must all be his friends. And she wonders if she will also have these many friends one day herself. We're going to get into the next part tomorrow because we're going to start getting towards the and it gets pretty explicit. Okay? It's a very good read for those who have patience and enjoy it. And this book, it's going to bring a lot of things in focus. And then it might make you think of some things too. But it's not, this is just getting you into who Malcolm, Bonnie, everybody is. Next, we'll come up on something I definitely don't want you cheering in the room for. You dig? Everybody in the club get tipsy. Oh, yeah. Definitely. What was that? Organs. Okay. Probably where these migrant children will go. The workers, the ones who prep, easily be sacrificed for whatever, to make sure the next generation of lives and slaves are possibly. Similar houses were organizations that provided support service to the urban poor and European immigrants, often including education, healthcare, children, and employment sources. That is the foundling homes. Yes. Yeah, he's coffee like a mother. I mean, Empire use some other woman's right. That's just not how, baby, we go back to that time. People right now are using other people's rigs. That's what thrift stores, which for us, when they were trying to look their best, thrift stores, because the dynamic of who we were had changed, was how we moved around. And we made it an art. And yet, all of us went broke and poor. That's why it cracks me up, because how they dress is how everybody dressed. Like I said, we weren't running around butt naked with feathers in our hair. That was ceremonial. Only ceremonial. And I would love to see any of these bastards come and challenge me on that. Ceremonial was, they have all these terms now because of religion, animalism, and all this other dumb shit. Didn't partake in none of that shit. There was order. That's why I don't get shocked when I see some people who are prominently followed because they think they have a voice, this, that, and other. And I'm like looking at going, wow, if I ever get to speak on this stuff, I'm gonna hit them upside the head. Natural order has disorder, right? Didn't I go over that yesterday? So yeah, we showed a lot of people how to dress, but there were those who already knew. It's nothing new. Nothing new. Everybody wore clothes. That's why even last this one Australian talking about, some didgeridoo shit. Talking about shut up. Y'all built great cities over there. You can't even remember that. They killed all your ancestors off, raped all the women, majority of the women, murdered all the fighters and warriors with the help of a lot of individuals who knew exactly what lands to go to and knew the numbers of people there. And they used weapons because they can't even remember the destruction that befell them. Yes, our brothers in Australia and Papua New Guinea and Mississippians in South America, numerous places, Easter Island, Hawaii, even on the south side, I believe it was, of the Hawaiian Islands. And even the islands outside. See, they always show you Hawaiian Islands. There's islands all around, big islands, with tribes and stuff. But because you got a systems of lies, and war is destructive. People have no clue. The Maasai, when you look at them, they wore clothes like anybody else. But how do you see them now? Jumping, and the young men getting their face off with their white eyes and white teeth, and that's how they get their women. That is some new age shit. I wonder who groomed them for that crap, which is beautiful. But nobody's going to tell them the truth. None of them. And it's sad. It's terribly disappointing and sad. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, and most of the women didn't need all that extra hip shit and all that. But you got to remember, there were some things made with a purpose, whether it had copper and silver in it or gold in it. I have a book on that. So when we cross that, we'll get into it. Because you don't hear nobody talking about the clothing of the past. When I'm telling you about the lamb stuff I wear with silver, I've got copper stuff that I can put around my waist and on my back and around my knees and elbows, like not just the copperware for protection, but I have stuff literally handmade by certain individuals. Like I said, it's beneficial. You know what I'm saying? Well, history is a lie. I mean, it's like I tell people, you think Harriet Tubman, 1840, well dressed with her husband, at the same time, free people. It states there were freemen. That she was a slave, and the Underground Railroad is the divert your attention from the truth of the Underground Railroad that existed and all the tunnels and places under the ground to when we started digging out our old world. Here come these fucktards. And all they do is make world, control everything as if they own it. And they don't own shit. Just a bunch of dummies. Okay? Appreciate y'all taking the time. Check out. I'm going to go and check the mail and see if the book is there. These lazy. Anyway. Appreciate y'all. Sisters that come in later. Brothers. Not everybody speaks up. I appreciate the thumbs. And we'll be getting into 100 years of lynching and the delectable Negro tomorrow. I'm not going to have y'all run around on a Saturday all feeble, but we will be reading Early in Order and all that in Gods of Eden. Okay? Harriet used tunnels and our Indian trails. Harriet used what was available, and they weren't called Indian trails, baby. Not saying that's a great way of saying it. Exactly. That's what it means. Use the land as it was. And she wasn't alone. There were hundreds of thousands of people who partook in it. She was singled out for the narrative to paint a false picture so they can keep up with the fake-ass transatlantic slave trade and all the other goofy shit. And to a lot of our people who didn't know, and then some of our people who knew better and then just acclimated to it because pain and suffering will make a motherfucker do dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? How many times do you think that one of those motherfuckers or another nigga in the church, because the church was very devious and saying, you give up a partial land, we'll make sure everything is good. You'll have everything you need. Because when they're talking about 40 acres a mule, man, our motherfucking people got it. Dumbasses. The problem is all the robbing and stealing. They talk about 30 trillion. That shit ain't nothing that they was to turn around and realize that what they owe us. And that's the fucking truth. I'm talking about we 30, so whatever the fucking trillion and 3 trillion, whatever the fucking number is. I'm like, who we? Bitch, y'all the one fucking everything up, giving everything away with this fake ass government, these narcissistic, sociopathic, think there's something and they ain't shit, nothing. Shit. You dig what I'm saying? But see, people don't have a military mind either. Thank goodness, kind of. But y'all waiting when y'all should have struck first a long time ago. I gotta say what needs to be said. Mindless. You got dumbass white supremacists, egotistical niggas. You got people pushing gay and this, that for harmony when it doesn't even have to be pushed that way. People should be well enough and leave well enough alone. But people don't know what it is to be well. So everybody in fear is being disrespectful, canoodling narratives that are baseless, that'll never help heal anything. The soil, the earth doesn't need healing. The people do. And aren't you the earth? Aren't you the ether, the nine, the atom, the Eve? I'm just saying. Could 369 be child, woman, man? Could 7 be what transposes and allows a different augmentation in reality to change chakras? I don't know. Are y'all looking into it? I'm not here to knock religion because most of the secrets are in there too, but it has everybody looking outside instead of being eternal, being sentient. They say full of life. Then why do we have to be so full of everything else that alludes to excrement, ammonia, ammonium urine, be the worst and the nastiest of the greatest creation? Or are we significant as we should be instead of calling ourselves the greatest? Because everything created, if that's the narrative, is great and wonderful. Everything, even down to the smallest molecule, to the biggest infinita. Isn't it all magnificent? That deficit is the debt they owe us. It's probably way more than that, of course, but not monetary. They can never pay us for what they've done, and they are well aware of it. So they'd rather destroy everything and everyone. And I'm not going to say nothing after that. I mean, if somebody was standing in front of you, told them, I'm going to kill you, but you're going to stand there and just die? Okay? Pay attention. Anyway, let me go and check the smell and see what I have in the box, if there's anything there. I had to yell to the guys in the back because there's nobody in the front. I was like, hey! Nah, I got all of my number, right? I said, hey, if it's a little yellow slip, can you put it in the drop box, please, and leave the key? Or somebody, okay, we'll see. I was like, let me get the hell up out of here. They might be in the back getting them all set up and ready to start hoarding the people through for the buses. I don't know. You never know, right? Hey, Hope Ransom. Hey, beloved. I enjoyed the video. Much appreciation. Anyway, let me get off of here because I can stay on. I can just talk and chat with y'all all day. Podcast will be up. Don't worry. I'd rather make sure my boys have enjoyed themselves at the gun show. And if not, we'll push it off another day or two. I'm not static. I don't recognize time nor days. When I say something, it's going to be. Some people know I'll say podcast and it'll be a month later. All right? So when I establish and mark it in, hell, I might say, hey, Wes, can we do it on one of the other channels? Set it up. I say, hey, can you pull these videos up? Marginalize it for people to watch certain things, and then we can bring it in. We'll see when we cross that. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I appreciate y'all again, my beloved sisters, my brothers. I'm doing it backwards, 2 and a 1, because I'm looking at everything backwards right now. Especially with all these Chinese that just came up for the weekend. God, dog, man. You better not take a picture over this way. Anyway, I'm going to see y'all look. I'm going to go out here so they know not to take a picture over this way. All right? See y'all here shortly.